Views and comments expressed on the following radio program by its hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of RMCOnAir.com or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
No one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Knowledge of self.
Radio.
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 Peace. Welcome to the Knowledge of Self radio show. I'm your host, Life Allah, along with my fellow host to my far left.
Peace, Jarulullah.
Peace. Jakil Knowledge Allah.
As y'all know out there, we've been on a 2-week hiatus, a little spring break for everybody out there. Now we back with some new information, some new great things. And first of all, we want to thank again all those out there who's been supporting Knowledge of Self radio show. We got a new logo, new theme song, new outlook on life, and we're ready to give it to you full blast. Now, if you're ready for that red or blue pill, here's the truth serum for you, right? Here it is, right? So, again, we want to, thank our current sponsor, GPS Global Position Solutions, for allowing us to be here, the RMCOnAir.com radio staff. And we're going to get right to it. Today's mathematics is wisdom, knowledge, all being born to understanding. That wisdom is the experience, the knowledge is the foundation, and understanding is what you gain as you begin to apply these principles. We're going to go right into the current events of what's been going on since we've been away. There's a lot that's been happening, and we're going to segue right over to the God, Jarul, to talk about some current events and things like that. Peace.
Yeah, so one current event that I was reading about that stood out to me was basically 2 Harvard scientists decided that they wanted to play around with the weather a little bit. So what they plan on doing within the next 12 months is taking basically fly a balloon over New Mexico, and that balloon's going to release some sulfate aerosols into the atmosphere, which will basically block out the sun and reflect the sunlight back into space. So
Right. I actually heard Bill Gates say the same thing, that he wanted to fly a balloon into the atmosphere, effectively blocking out the sun, in attempts to reverse
global warming.
Well, how does that play in terms of chemical warfare and the chemtrails that we see in the air? Because we know that there's a lot of stuff, people getting sick out there, right? Don't know why they're getting sick. And now you got these Harvard supposed scientists going to create a weather pattern. That has a lot to do with the HAARP agency out in the Canada region, Alaska region, I should say. Right. How does that play a part in today's current events, and how does that segue into what we're going to be building with today in terms of what folks need to be dealing with?
Well, to me, what stood out the most was that, they said that they haven't actually, manifested this quite yet. But we all know, if you actually just look up in the sky wherever you're at, you're going to see chemtrails. You'll see planes leaving smoke or chemicals in the air, and then those chemicals turning into clouds.
Right. You see these fake clouds. In the sky.
Exactly. You see them every day. So, it seems like, now they want to say that they're actually doing it when they've already been doing it for, years and years now. So, I don't know. It's crazy.
So what's the remedy to that, God? I mean, we've been on this show now for the last 2 months talking about certain problems that we see, and we've been trying to share certain insight to the people and the viewers out there. So with this new development, not that it's new at all, but developing in terms of the minds that we're striving to, have in tune with this, what would be the remedy to that? I know that when it rains, sometimes you look at your car, you see all this acid stuff on your car, and you wonder, is that coming from the rain? So that's also what we're breathing. So what would be the remedy? Should we got to walk around and wear masks like we in China somewhere? And I mean, what we got to do?
Nah, those masks aren't even effective.
Okay, I got to run around with gas masks all day and try to keep things bubbling. I mean, tell me what we got to do, God? Because one of the things we find doing Non-Stop Radio, is give people insight, and at the same time hope that they will be able to take action in terms of what we share with them.
Well, first and foremost, it's awareness.
Okay.
People got to understand and know what's going on first and foremost. And then once that occurs, now we can strive to come together and say, okay, we're not going to stand for this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But, the media is very smart and tricky in keeping us distracted with other different things when these issues kind of slide in on the back end. So, like I said, awareness is number one.
What's your take on that, God, Jaquil? What's your take on that?
I would say definitely you got to start with awareness. You know what I'm saying? That's dealing with mathematics. You got to start with the foundation.
Well, not everybody know mathematics. So if they're not knowing how 1 + 1 = 2, what would you tell them then? You know what I'm saying? As far as what we know as being mathematics.
I tell them you got to start with the basics. So first you have to have a working knowledge of what it is that you're dealing with. So definitely do your research. There's plenty of documented cases.
Okay.
Of stuff like that. I would say beyond that, we definitely have to start eating better. Not only eating better, but supplementing, because you can't always get everything from your food. So you got to supplement, and through that kind of process, your body will detox and kind of get rid of these harmful chemicals. Your body does it naturally.
Yeah, that's important. That's important.
But if the immune system's not strong enough, then that's when you have serious problems. Then
you can have a very fast Ferrari, but if you're putting 86 octane
gas in it, ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're not gonna get that performance.
Right. Well, as we had said, we was on a spring break. A lot has happened in terms of current events. We want to talk one, in particular, the Boston massacre, the bombing out there in Boston. Got a lot of people, running around, crazy and panic mode. As I mentioned before, not even years that I've been in the military, we use a thing called PRS, problem, reaction, solution. We create the problem, wait for you to react, and then, of course, we already know what the solution is going to be. This Boston massacre thing, or this bombing thing, really was a smoke and mirrors type of operation, I consider. The father of the so-called 2 suspects say, my sons would never do nothing like that. So we know that some people are being used as guinea pigs to offset other programs that's going on. What's your take on that as far as how that's working, and how did that play a part to what I saw from Family Guy? Family Guy, the cartoon, depicted this thing happening about a week ago, 2 weeks prior.
Yes, sir.
So what's that about,
just
and
like
how y'all draw it up?
With 9/11.
Okay, yeah. How y'all draw that up?
Well, to me, it's, I don't necessarily look too much at the event. I mean, you can look at all the different things where they were saying at first it was only 2 bombs, and then after that they said there were other bombs in other different areas, and then they came back and said there was only 2 bombs. You can look at that, but what I strive to look at is what else is going on that they're not talking about. And what really stood out to me was this bill that passed called CISPA. Basically dealing with really them starting the process of taking away our 4th Amendment right, basically.
What is the 4th Amendment?
Just right to due process, and, you having the ability to, or them having to have to get a warrant to actually go into your personal areas and gain certain information on you. But now they're basically open to, like certain companies like Google and other different companies and things of that nature, they're open to go ahead and just give our information directly to the government, and we don't have to know about it. And
well, that was something that was already pretty much manifested from 9/11, based upon the Patriot Act 1 and 2, where most of our so-called rights was already slashed because we're not sovereign citizens, we're public citizens, so we're more prone to the laws that they constantly put out, which brings me right to a mathematical reality in terms of who's the founder of unlike, attract, and unlike, repel, as it relates to, the world that we live in. People not understanding what their connections are. Speaking about connections, God, you was talking about the media and, TV and the types of images they put out there. I know that the show is going to be talking about television, the lies that TV display and how it affects the mental minds of young people and how it unfortunately affects the minds of older people. What is your take on that particular science? Because that's a science within itself, TV and the psychological effects that it has on, the minds of many people, the masses, and how does that work?
Well, when you look at television, there's obviously a lot of signs that people aren't really aware of as it relates to how the television actually affects your conscious mind as well as subconscious and things of that nature. So I think it's important to recognize that, when you watch TV, we're going to actually get more into alpha waves and different waves that TV projects a little bit later on in the show. But briefly, when you watch TV, it puts you in a certain state where your subconscious is wide open. Mm-hmm. And then based on that, whatever you see on the television is going to be imprinted on your subconscious, and then that's going to affect the way you think, the way you feel, and things of that nature. So
we're gonna go back into that in more detail. But do you feel that that's a covert operation where they're using psychological warfare on the minds of the young and the old and trying to get some way to control them other than by using entertainment? I know I saw something called Scandal, the House of Cards. I mean, all these political things that they're doing now to keep our minds away from what's really jumping off. And one of the things that we can also do is go into the depths of that science and how that really affects you. You got anything you want to add on to that, God, Jaquel?
Just to add on to what Jarul was saying, there's definitely certain images, like you said, that they put in the media to kind of distract us from different things. I think off the bat, one thing that I noticed was before they even had a suspect, they said they had a suspect and this is what he looked like. But at the bottom of the lady's head, I want to say this was on Fox News, at the bottom of her head in big red writings, there was big black writing, there was, "We don't know who the suspect is." They're telling you that this is who we're looking for. Yeah.
Right.
So media definitely has a huge, I would say, control over the people's minds. Like the guy was talking about, we'll definitely get into later in the show. Mm-hmm. It puts you in a state to where you're subjective to different ideas that you may not have had. So you're no longer thinking yourself. Mm-hmm. You're kind of being told what to think. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so your logical mind, right, to where when they're telling you, we don't know what the person looks like, but this is the person that you should be looking for, right? Logically, if I told you that right now, you'd be like, what? That's crazy, right? But if it's on television, then they tell you it magically makes sense to you because you're not thinking anymore.
Yeah, especially when you look at like some of the results of the early reporting as far as the certain suspects being of Al-Qaeda or related to Muslims and things of that nature. They were actually a Muslim doctor who was assaulted and actually another individual, actually an Asian guy, but they thought he was Muslim. And they beat him down and dislocated his shoulder and this and that. So
and just to come to find out that he wasn't even really a part of nothing. So that would mean that most of us, as we already know, is being stereotypically put at bay, and we got to be even mindful when we come outside looking in a certain way. I know yesterday I was in a bow tie at an event, and I had people looking at me like I was selling bean pies or like I was about to come in and do something crazy. But I was, at a professional event. And, bow ties is a sign of professionalism, you know what I mean? But for me, I guess they thought I was about to sell them, Muhammad Speaks or something, you know what I mean? And, it's sad because, the type of images that they, again, are that's depicted on TV about black men in general, or even black women, they get this idea that everybody's supposed to be that way. And when they see someone that's not that way, now it's like a mind boggler. It's like, oh my God, you're different. Right. You're a different type. But what type am I? I'm still a black man, and it ain't gonna never change. I mean, so I don't know what type they're talking about. You know what I mean? But what we're gonna do, we're gonna go into a little bit more. We do have a new guest, or should I say, another host that just kind of rolled in. You know what I mean? We're gonna go ahead and introduce him right quick.
All right, peace. This is Teray Allah.
So we was
Peace.
talking about today's mathematics and wisdom, knowledge, or being born to understanding, and what we was talking about is some of the TV images and the current events. Do you have any current events before we go on our first break that you want to elaborate on a little bit, God?
Yeah, so a reference for this news article is on NBCnews.com, and it features a group of Nigerian girls, and just to familiarize some people, remember Africa is not a country, it's a continent. This was something that came out in the article.
Right.
But Nigeria being a country in Africa. They basically did a science project where they used urine to power a generator. So apparently,
Can you repeat that? I want to make sure they understand
Right.
that their toxic waste is now being utilized for energy. Is what you're saying?
Exactly. So, it actually was a project that was done by a professor from Venezuela, and they basically kind of have a dispute right now about whether or not the contribution by these girls is I guess a new discovery by them. So it's an attempt to discredit them.
Right,
But-
and then they'll turn around and patent the
Right.
urine, and they end up saying we created it.
Right,
So how does that
exactly.
play with fecal matter then? I mean, I guess manure is used for energy too.
Right,
I guess
exactly.
you know what I mean? So you got urine and fecal matter used as energy now.
Right, and we're in that era where there's a big discussion about going green and trying to use
More organic
natural
substances and natural resources.
Right.
Well, I mean, as you release what's not natural for the body is natural for the earth.
Right.
No pun intended. But I know when I was in Korea, I actually took some time to study as a monk to find out what that whole feeling was like. Buddhism, you know what I mean? We talked about it in our lessons. And they actually utilize urine to wash their face, and they actually utilize the fecal matter to fertilize the plants and stuff that they continue to eat. You know what I mean? Which they never got sick
Right.
at no time.
And you know what's funny is I heard about a brother of mine told me about a friend of his who went to Japan, and he did something called urinology because he was really sick. So they actually had him submerged in a pool of his own urine, and apparently when he went over to Japan, he was real sickly, his hair was really gray, but then when he returned, a lot of that had been reversed.
Wow.
So, there is some science on that.
So for those out there who's flushing your toilet, you might want to kind of, keep that in a little conserved container for future uses. Maybe it may turn into gas, or it may turn into natural resources that could be applicable to your bottom line. You never know.
And you can save on your water bill.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, but see, this is what we're talking about as far as the knowledge of self and what self really produces. So much about our bodies, so much about the universe that we still don't connect to, and we live in a world of nothing but energy, and we got to begin to utilize that energy for our own practical resources and needs. So, anything else you want to elaborate on, God, on terms of that?
No, I just think that it's a really good sign in terms of the development in science these days, especially when it's something coming from some young girls in a third world country.
Wow.
So apparently the generator it has the capability of generating for about 6 hours of electricity.
Wow.
And,
So
you
no
know-
more use of battery. Just have some urine,
Right,
pee in a cup, and everything is good.
right.
Wow, that's serious. That's serious. So I think we're going to go to our first break now. We're going to come back and talk about television, talk about some real important things, and welcome back to the Knowledge Self Radio Show. Peace.
Peace.
Welcome back to the Not Self. Okay. Welcome back to the Non Self Radio Show. I'm your host, Life of Law, along with my other hosts as well.
Jarulala.
Peace. Jaquil Allah.
Peace, Terrell.
And we were discussing the current events, and now that we're back from our spring break, we got a lot more to give you. But we want to go into the central theme of today's show, which is talking about television for all you television fans out there. As you notice, the word television has tell lies vision, telling lies into your mental mindset or your third eye and got you thinking a certain way or got you getting caught up in the illusion of what this real matrix really is about. So we want to go into that, and we want to, talk about some things as it relates to television. And I'm going to go ahead and segue over to the guard, Jarul, and the rest of the guards so we can go ahead and give you that intel. Peace.
Peace. So why don't we go ahead and share the questions that we're going to answer during the next couple of segments of the show. The first one is, what are the effects of television on the brain? Does television affect intelligence? What are the effects of TV on the body? How many hours of television do people watch according to gender, race, and age? Who pioneered the creation of the television and for what purpose? What kind of science, meaning sight, sound, emotional, color, is used to attract or hold your mind's attention to TV? And also, how does TV lead to detachment from reality and also lead to a lack of emotional attachment? And finally, how has television affected the minds of our people in this day and time? So, when we were building this show, one of the first things we wanted to consider was how television directly or indirectly affects the brain. And of course, through our research, we discovered that it depends on exactly what type of television programs you're watching, as well as how long you're watching these television programs. So if you're a parent, I think it's really important for you to take a few notes in terms of what you should do if you have a television and you show your children programs, regular programs, whether it be on cable or regular TV, which is very rare nowadays. Mm-hmm. But it's really important that we monitor what our young people are watching because, like most people will tell you, children have the minds of sponges. So what they absorb, you being a parent, you're going to have to create a filter. And that's usually just by talking to your kids about what they're watching and limiting how much they watch and also being mindful of what they watch.
I think that's an important thing that you bring up is talking to your kids about what they've watched. I think so many times there's that disconnect between, what your child was watching and what you think they might have been watching or what you think they understood from what they saw.
Well, that's interesting about the parents about talking to their young, because most parents from knowing on my era, I came up in the 80s, I'm a 60s baby, so what we watched was like Sesame Street and Bonanza and what's the other show, the Brady Bunch and all these other things. MASH, so the Sanford and Son, so we didn't have a lot of the stuff that they have today and the technology and all of the Kim Kardashians and all this craziness, the wives of Atlanta looking like I don't know what, acting crazy, so how do you reach the young people? I know we want to get into these questions, but it's very difficult to reach the people, the young people, when they're so far away and advanced more than they are with the parents. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So how does that play? And we want to get into those questions that the guy was talking about.
Well, I'll jump on that. I think part of it is just, talking to them. They definitely may not want to talk to you, although that's not true, because just yesterday I was building with these youths at this birthday party, and I had like $6-7 in my pocket, and instead of going to the strip club, no, I'm playing. You know what I'm saying? I just
strip club.
Kids, like, so what grade are you in? What kind of math are you doing?
Yeah.
And they were willing to exchange. But going on that point, I think kids are really willing to share information about what it is that they're watching. Just people never approach them about what they're into. They approach them about what they think they should be into. You know what I mean? And so within that, just alone, there's little kids who will show you all day long about Facebook and how to put little secret things and if you just ask them about it, like, oh yeah, you don't know how to do that here,
Right.
and they'll give that to you.
All right.
You
So-
gotta be willing to speak to them.
So let's go into those questions that you had, God, because I think that's very important that we get to those questions in the Q&A session about how do we go about dealing with this serious matter in terms of where it came from, who created it, what was the purpose, that
Okay.
type of thing. Go ahead, God.
Well, why don't we begin with the science behind television? So basically, how does it work? So an early inventor by the name of Hertz in Germany wanted to televise or basically transmit images from one location to another.
So wireless technology at its finest, but at an early stage.
Right. This was
Germany.
in Germany.
Mm.
So the whole purpose was that it's a really extensive set of research. You know, when you read it, it has diagrams and charts and graphs. But for the most part, the whole purpose was for him to prove to other scientists that he could actually televise or transmit images from one location to another, such as we are being transmitted, who knows, to Guatemala, for example. So that whole process is basically the science behind television. So I wanted to give it over to Jaquil because I know you had a few ideas in terms of how does television work. So you can add on to that.
No doubt. I think part of what you just said was interesting. I know the brain does two major important things when we're talking about viewing images. Is one, if you take a still picture, that still picture is made up of many pixels, right? So the brain actually is not looking at a whole picture. It's looking up at a bunch of individual pixels that it then reassimilates and puts into an image.
In reverse.
Right,
Mhm.
right. The second part of what the brain does, it'll then take multiple frames, right, and then put all those frames together to cause a moving image.
Like a cartoon, right?
Right. The same way, I remember when I was little, I went to, I can't remember the name of it now, the Science Center, and one of the things we did was we made our own little flip book. And so, you draw like one picture with a guy like this, and like this, and like that, and, many pictures, and then you flip it, right, and you see it move. Right, well, that's exactly how the brain works, and they actually have this figured out. It's up to 15 images, pictures per little thing that makes up a little thing. Anything less than that, it becomes kind of jerky. So, like if you download, certain videos and you see it kind of coming together, discombobulated, kind of. That's kind of the same way. And then once your brain puts those things together, you have a full working movie or picture.
So how does everyone think that affects the brain? I mean, how does that impact the psyche, the human psyche, when people are watching television? So I know we all wanted to build on that because that's one of those heavy questions. I mean, does television actually affect your brain?
Well, when you look at it, I mean, what's being generated is radiation. You have radiation coming through the screen. So obviously, from that standpoint, radiation, we know that's not something that's always agreeable to our physical makeup. So from that standpoint, I think, we know that radiation can cause issues, cancers and things of that nature. But, when you look at the whole science of brain waves and things of that nature, I think that's when it really gets really interesting.
You're talking about neurons and stuff like that, as far as the brain neurons and how they connect?
You have, like, everything is energy, like you stated earlier. So in our brain, we have a certain neurons and things of that nature that transmit different,
Electrical impulse.
exactly, exchanging through the different parts of our body and stuff like that.
And at different frequencies.
So the television can actually control the certain frequencies of your brain.
Right.
Right.
And I mean, as far as the whole idea of image, one of the things that I challenge listeners to do or viewers to do is think about some objects. These may be, people, they may be things. And when you think about these things, think about how you associate, the image of a fruit. What do you associate that with? Or Africa, for example. And then you have to determine whether or not that was an image that was placed in your mind through viewing
Right.
television, or is that something that came from your own imagination? Because that's one of the psychological effects of watching too much television and the wrong television shows.
The
is
lack
that,
of imagination.
Right. It leads to a lack of imagination.
I can totally see that.
And
So-
there are tons of studies that, which was interesting when I was studying this. You have several studies coming out, from the Surgeon General over the last 25 years. You have studies coming from people who are in computer technology and the National Institute of Mental Health, which says that when they try to establish the harmful effects of television, all of a sudden the research just stops. It just, someone drops the ball, and then it's considered inconclusive, which is going back to what Jerul said in terms of radiation. That was something that people 20, 25 years ago were concerned about, that the television was emitting low levels of radiation.
But how does that play into the plasma screens?
Right. I mean, honestly, since it's a new development, I haven't come across any research, but I'm sure that if you make the connection between a computer monitor and the fact that when we discard computer monitors, it becomes a hazardous waste material. So I'm pretty sure that when you discard anything with plasma in it, it does have some hazardous chemicals in it. It's just not enough people right now who are concerned about some of the things that we have in our homes.
So how do you explain the brain waves? I know that the brain waves are, those signals. How do you explain that? And it connects to alpha, beta, gamma. Like, the Incredible Hulk had a lot of gamma rays. And then he changed and turned green. And then the muscles and everything. I'm quite sure you folks out there saw that, the Incredible Hulk. Gamma rays did that. So how does that play into what
The
you're
old
talking
school
about?
Incredible Hulk on Channel 5?
Yeah. Oh, I guess you watched it then. So, yeah, how did that play? The gamma rays and the different things. But I know there's a lot of chemicals and stuff that, as you saw in the beginning of the show, if you remember. And then all of a sudden his eyes turned like white and he just became a monster. And that's what everybody's drinking now, right? They drink Monster and everything else, chemicals. So how does that play into all of that?
So before you answer that, though, I want to say that's interesting that you mentioned the whole eyes changing colors. A friend of mine, he's plays this game, The Sims. So yeah, it's an online, not online, but
But it's an interactive thing,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So you build the city, and you got to try and make the people happy and create jobs for them and lay it out in the proper way. Man, it's really entailed. And so after a while of watching, I'm not going to say his name to protect the guilty, but after watching Person X play for X amount of time, they get this certain kind of weird gazed over look in the eyes. It's just not like zoned out. They're definitely not paying attention to the world outside of them.
Yeah.
They are in that game.
Right.
That is what's going on.
But to answer those gamma rays and the beta waves, and how does that play? As I know that's some of the questions that we want to answer.
Right. So I know we had agreed on building on the theta, the beta, and the alpha waves. So it's kind of interesting going into the Greek fraternities and sororities or what have you.
That's
Are you
another
aware
show
that,
that's coming. Another show that's coming.
When you use these words theta, beta, and alpha, they have something to do with brain waves. I wanted to start with delta because we didn't talk about delta, but delta waves are basically those.
Not like Delta 6.
they're the brain
Or
waves.
Delta Airlines.
Right,
Depending on
Delta
you want to
Airlines.
travel. You know what I'm saying?
That's a really great analogy because that's when you're in a deep sleep. That's generally when people dream. And also there's something called REM or rapid eye movement. Right. So that's what happens during that phase
And a delta.
of sleep. Right.
Wow.
Now, since we're going back to the brain waves, why don't we go ahead and begin with the theta brain waves? And apparently, theta brain waves are, among other things, they're associated with sleep and dreaming. So that would be the first stage before you go into the delta stage. So I think it's all good for us to kind of build on how television, like, apparently automatically when you begin watching television,
You get sleepy.
you go into that theta brainwave phase.
Put you to sleep.
Pardon me, wasn't it that low alpha? It was low alpha, right?
Oh, pardon self, it is a low alpha.
Yeah, so television basically emits low alpha waves.
Thank you.
And, when you watch it within 30 seconds from my research, it'll put your mind in a low alpha state.
Mm-hmm.
In that state, it basically just opens up your subconscious mind, and you just become, very suggestible. So based on the imaging and
So auto-suggestion is what you're talking about.
yeah, basically what you watch is going to be imprinted on your subconscious.
And then I think, like we were building earlier, since it puts you in that state, you're no longer using your logic mind,
Right.
which is a different brainwave.
Mm-hmm. So as far as the hemispheres of the brain, you're talking about logic is primarily considered the left side of the brain. If we consider the brain, acting in that manner, I consider it just a brain. It acts as one organ.
Right.
Okay. But for the most part, if you go into some of the discoveries in neuroscience, what they do is they have have conducted experiments over the years where they measure these brain waves through a EEG. And
You say EEG? What is EEG?
EEG. I want to make sure.
What's EEG?
It's called an electroencephalograph. So it measures all of the waves that we're talking about, your theta, the beta, and the alpha brain waves. And one of the studies that I read had some teenagers watching television, and automatically the brain waves went into the low alpha phase.
Right off the bat.
Like
But then
instantly.
when they gave them a book,
It went right
back,
the other way.
beta,
Right.
it went into the beta brain waves.
Which I had a beta player back in the day. Police Academy.
beta,
2,
yeah.
Baseballs, and then
But they do a lot of games with the betas, the beta application. So it's interesting how this all connects to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's very interesting, and a lot of people don't even take time to consider these the vibration of these words and the type of signals it's sending.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's interesting. So, but let's go on. Let's keep talking about, because this is heavy.
And what about the noise factor in terms of television? Because we're talking about neuroscience, and we understand that anytime we repeatedly do something for a long period of time, which has nothing to do with us generating the images or the reality around us, what ends up happening is we become victim to any type of suggestions, as was mentioned earlier, but more or less the noise factor in movies and television, and also the whole idea of it's the enhanced light. I'm trying to remember the exact terminology, but I think this would be the best way to do it since you are studying.
And you're kind of watching us right now.
Right.
You're watching us through the waves of the internet.
Right.
And we want to make sure you get it. You know what I mean? Go ahead, God.
and even just looking at our transition, how the transitions are slow enough to where you can see what's going on. It's not a flicker, such as when you walk into a club and you see a neon light blinking rapidly. Mm-hmm. So if you want to test this out and you want to look at certain programs, turn out the lights and watch a television program, and you can look at your wall, and every time you see flashes on your wall, that's that light or that transmission that's coming out of a television. Mm-hmm. Okay, and at some point, according to a lot of the studies, you begin absorbing certain things from those images, whether it be aggression, sexual arousal was another thing that came out of the National Institute of Mental Health. The Surgeon General had talked about the percentage of violence among young people over the last few years.
So, from some research I was doing, although when you have kids, and I think they wanted to say kids watched on average of 4 hours of television a day, and that's not including, that's a lot of time, right? I definitely wasn't one of those kids. In any event, my mom was kicking me out the house. Like, no, it's light outside. You got to go play. And that's not including video game time or sitting in front of the internet.
What happened to the reading time? Reading, studying.
Which puts you in the beta ways.
Yeah.
Fixing your logic. Yeah.
Right. That's why we got a lot of people who's dummied up.
You're
They
right.
ain't
So I'm
reading.
saying when you're trying to
They're not reading what's
dumb
going
down
on.
people,
Yeah.
you can't say that's not a true thing.
Yeah,
They're definitely
exactly.
Not putting you in a brain way for you to think. Functionally,
Right.
they're putting you in a brain way for you to not think.
Right.
But they were saying about these kids who were exposed to violence in TV shows or whatnot that they were watching. One, they expressed more aggression, right, towards other kids, but in the same time, they were also fearful of the world and what would happen as response.
So again, back to problem, reaction, solution. I'm gonna create a scene for you, like the Boston situation. I'm gonna see how all you people react, and then I'm gonna have a solution for you, which is to give you more visuals to keep your mind at a dead level. Interesting. What we're gonna do right now, though, because we still got a lot more to talk about. You only got 1 hour. We're gonna have to work on that time. We got to get more time. But we're gonna go to another break, and when we come back, we're gonna finish this discussion about the television and what you can do about it. Peace.
Hey, are you tired of those same old energy drinks with bad taste? Make a switch to Pit Bull Energy Drink with a guaranteed no aftertaste. Pit Bull offers more energy with ginseng and vitamins B6 and B12. With a ginger ale lemon lime flavor, Pit Bull meets the consumer's demand for better tasting and healthier energy products with a guaranteed no aftertaste. Make a switch to Pit Bull Energy Drink. Pit Bull offers more energy with ginseng and vitamins B6 and B12. With a ginger ale lemon lime flavor, Pit Bull meets the consumer's demand for better tasting and healthier energy products. For more information on Pit Bull energy drinks, bars, and mixes, visit their website at hiphopbev.com. That's hiphopbev.com. Online orders available at hiphopbev.com.
Welcome back to the Nas Self Radio Show. Once again, I'm your host, Life Alabi, right here with my co-host, bringing you some real serious information about the television out there. But we're going to go right back into what we were talking about, because I think it's a very interesting time that we live in, where everything is depicted through images and how you, the viewer, is seeing it and how you're reacting to it. So, God, we was talking about some questions that you was posing. Now let's get into even more the meat of the matter about how television affects the body, affects everything, and how that plays a part into what we're dealing with today.
Sure. Well, what we were going to share is the importance of being active, and one of the things that television prevents people from doing, if we're not mindful of it, is the fact that we don't exercise. We don't go outside, and we sit for hours in front of the television. So I know Jarul had some really important knowledge to share about how television promotes a sedentary lifestyle.
Well, I mean, television is just really one part of it. I mean, most of us in this day and time, our lifestyles are sedentary based on our jobs. We're probably behind a desk all day.
Right.
Then you probably drive about an hour, at least an hour to work every day. So, at least.
Anywhere on that 101.
So basically, you're sitting in your ass most of the day. You're
You
not
sit
doing
at
nothing.
work. Okay, you sleep. You wake up. Get in the car. You're sitting. Get to work. You're sitting. Get back in the car. You're sitting.
Wait, go to lunch and you're sitting.
You go to lunch. You're sitting. Get back in the car. Then you drive home. You're sitting. Then you get back home. And then you sit on the couch. So
And you sit on the toilet. Don't forget the waste products that you could use
it
to
just
help
don't
you
stop.
build energy, right?
And it doesn't stop. So all of that has an effect. you know, if we were meant to sit all day, then our bodies wouldn't be so wouldn't be structured. It wouldn't be structured the way it is.
Designed different.
Yeah. So that has an effect not only on, you know, the amount of flexibility that you have, but also, you know, obviously it's going to increase your obesity. You know, different cardiovascular diseases are going to go up, high blood pressure, diabetes. So all these things are going to connect with a lack of movement. And that comes from, you know, sitting behind a TV, you know. So
No doubt. From some research I was looking at, your average person is watching TV for like 5 hours a day. Yeah,
wow, that's a lot of time.
That's a lot of sitting down.
Right.
And so kind of as we were talking out through the break, you know, when you watch television, it definitely promotes obesity. You're sitting down. But like the guy was saying, it makes you hungry. So now when you get up to go eat, mind you, you're not thinking for yourself because it didn't put you in a beta. Right. It put you in the alpha wave.
Right.
So now what are you going to go eat? You're going to go eat Doritos. You know what I mean? You're going to go eat all that Monster drinks. You know what I mean? All that crappy stuff that you saw.
Burger King.
Yeah, McDonald's, Burger King, Carl's Jr., you know what I'm
That
saying?
remind me of a movie of Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy was in a movie and he got like real fat.
Nutty Professor.
The Nutty Professor, and he was eating M&M's and ice cream in front of a TV screen, getting more fat. So I was like, "Wow, that's kind of interesting." So what you said, it brought me right to that image. Like, yeah, this fat guy's eating M&Ms and chocolate cake and all that, and not
Watching The
doing
Biggest Loser, talking about how
right,
I need to get up and do something. Jump.
right. So yeah, go ahead. You know,
Yeah, no, you know, just that 5 hours a day just takes away from a lot of time that you could be out doing something
natural.
Yeah, something more natural. Like the guy was saying, our bodies aren't meant to sit around and not do anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so you got to take some time to get up and do something. Because I understand, you know, at your work you may not be able to do much based on, you know, technology nowadays. A lot of things we do with computers, or a lot of things are computerized.
Okay. So now let's go into the image of blackness. I mean, I know that, you know, the black image is, you know, always being portrayed as, you know, nobodies, you know, pants slagging, women with their breasts out, you know, looking like I don't know what. I mean, how does this black image, as it relates to television, play a part in terms of what and how we're dealt with today as a people?
I think the thing that stood out to me a lot from my research was that black children actually watch more television than Caucasian children. And obviously, when we think about black people in television, the images of us aren't really that positive. So based on the science that we already talked about as it relates to that opening, the television opening up your subconscious mind, and then you seeing negative images of your people, of course that's going to have an effect on you.
If you're seeing any images at all. Like the
Right.
guy was mentioning, back in the day when there was early television, Stafford and Son, what other black shows were there really?
Yeah, the
Right.
Jeffersons and Good Times, but
Chico
look what they
and the
depicted in
Man.
Good Times. Yeah, the
You
Good
know.
Times is you living in a project,
Right.
you living in a 1-bedroom apartment, you're barely scraping, pops can't find work, mom
that's
is
good
out
times.
there, and it's good times though.
Right.
Yeah, it's good times. Yeah, it's great.
Ain't we lucky we got him? Oh man, that's right.
But yeah, go ahead, God.
So what are the shows? Because I know I'm at a disadvantage because I don't get to watch too much TV, and
Which is why you're
neither does
so
anyone
skinny.
else here. You know, I'm still trying to figure that out.
So you just proved the whole show correct. So you don't watch television.
I get to
and-
watch TV.
Yeah, cool. Sure done.
So I know we had compiled a list of shows that have what we call recurrent negative images. So what were some of those shows that you all had decided on?
One was a recent movie that I just saw.
Okay.
I don't know if you brothers got the chance
Temptation.
to see it. Temptation.
Yo, Temptation.
Did you
Man,
see it, G?
yeah, I seen it.
Okay, yo,
I seen
the
it.
first thing that caught me off the bat was the black brother with the extra pink lips. And no, I bring that up because you guys can Google it. Yeah, there's a real big thing going on in Africa right now about black men trying to pinken up the lips to be more
Tattooing their
European.
lips.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so
man.
that's one thing that immediately jumped off to me because
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, yo, I don't know any brothers with lips that pink.
Right. Yeah, what's the next one?
Oh yeah, so The Walking Dead. I know a lot of us, get into that whole zombie show and stuff like that.
Wow,
but,
dead people eating dead people.
Man,
Isn't that
the
crazy?
show is very symbolic, but I'm not gonna go too far into that.
The whole show within
You
itself.
know, but like if you look at a lot of the black characters on the show, and the reason why to me it stands out is because I actually read the comics a little bit, and in the comics there's actually positive black images in the sense of black males being dominant, being on the same level as Rick or the leader of the group. But when it comes to the show, you don't see that.
That's interesting. That zombie thing. There was a movie early on called The Night of the Living Dead, and a black man was one of the killing all the.
Yeah.
It was a black and white film, original
that.
film, Night of the Living Dead, and the black man was the main character who's killing all of the zombies.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's interesting.
And that's why they brought that out again.
Yeah. But now they reversed it now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
They reversed it.
They're
So
like, yeah,
what
more
about
people are watching television? Huh?
Yeah, what about that movie Scandal? They got the black chick who was a lawyer that screwed the president. You know what I mean? And, it was
man.
wild. Yo, Scandal.
Check out
Wow,
Scandal,
yo,
man.
it's wild.
Okay.
It's wild. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's on
It's a trip.
Netflix or something? Or,
Yeah, it's
That's
on
one of those
Netflix.
old
The first
movies, man,
episode's
but it was
out
weird.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, Netflix. Ain't that something?
Yeah.
And what about some of the television shows with positive images?
Oh, well,
if-
let's see if we can remember
especially
some.
There's
since
one
we're
that
talking
my
to people.
daughter's watching, and it's actually real cool because it's got a young black woman on there who she plays the role of a doctor for her toys, and she repairs them. It's called Doc McStuffins.
Doc McStuffins?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So now she's on some like, yo, Daddy, I want to be a doctor, and
Right.
so
See how that works.
there are some positive effects to television, but I'd say again.
So
we
what happened to Bill
definitely have to
Cosby? I
remember.
mean, he came and left, and the Huxtables, I guess, is no longer a valid family structure. But you have a black man doing great things in the community and becomes a doctor, and the mother is a lawyer, but she's still handling her responsibilities.
Raising
I mean, what happened to that
successful
show? I mean,
children.
yeah. What happened to that show? I mean, did we just forget about
Or shows like that you don't really see. I mean, I think the last one I saw probably was Everybody Hates Chris. You know what I mean?
And that's
Yeah.
along the line of Good Times.
Yeah, you know what I mean? They scratching and struggling, to survive too. So
Yeah. Was it Brothers a Plumber or something like that, right? A plumber, and
Yeah,
I
you
think
got, like,
Tanisha
10
Arnold,
yeah.
she tripping out every day and bugging out. You know what I mean? Wow, that's
And then when
crazy.
you go into the science like we were building on, it puts you in that alpha state, and so it puts you in a programmed state of mind. So although your woman may not normally have tripped out after watching a certain amount of television, she may respond. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
that female.
if anybody knows about that, as far as the response, it would be me. You know what I mean? Because, man, I mean, there's been some real trippy moments lately out there. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
It's that
Yeah,
television.
it's crazy, but that's life, though, is what we call it, right? That's life. So what else, God?
So we wanted to add on with some of the alternatives of watching television. I think one of the things I did, which was it was really cool to do this with my son. We made a board game, and it may sound corny to some kid who's playing like violent video games at 6 years old, but to see the creative energy put into just sitting down with your child and say, hey, let's make a game board, and then he gets to use his little action figures or whatever platform toys to put on there, and he creates his own idea. What was some other alternatives to television?
That's dope. I think one of the other things is just going outside and being active with your kids. Get them some rollerblades.
Take them on a bike
bike-
excursion,
hike
hiking.
or just go walk around.
I mean, it's not high science. Just do something that doesn't require you sitting in one place
Right.
staring at a screen. Get active.
But on a quick
Be
side note,
active.
though, some of the research that I did do pointed towards kids playing video games, and the majority of people who were playing video games weren't actually kids, which I found surprising. But they were saying that there were certain things that they could do better than people who didn't play video games. Recognition, one of the things they brought up was driving in fog. You play video games, first-person shooter games, you're more apt to be able to see the differences in different layers and textures.
perception.
Yeah, right. And I don't know if you guys ever played any first-person shooters, but my son's got one, and I walk out and got killed 5 times, didn't see anyone. And he's like, "Yo, Dad, they right there, they right there." I'm like, "How
And
you
he's
see
looking
these
at it in the fall.
And he sees
Wow.
people. So yeah. And then they did say they have a certain kind of intelligence to do certain other things. So, we'll build on it on the Facebook show. Maybe have a show in the middle of the week on the Tiny Chat.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. What else?
So do read and view. Substitute 1 hour of television for outside activity, even if it's a walk around the block.
What about those books that you have there, God? I
Oh.
mean, they might want to, show them that as we.
I would suggest you read Jawanza Kunjufu's book, Developing Positive Self-Images and Discipline in Black Children, Motivating and Preparing Black Youth to Work. Something real sophisticated for everyone, but it's a good read. Raising Children in a Socially Toxic Environment by James Garbarino, and he talks a lot about television and how it creates a toxic environment.
Okay. So what else? In closing, what we got for them?
One thing I came across in my studies was that television actually affects your children, even if they're not looking at the screen. So if you put your child aside and you're watching TV and you're not letting them watch it, that still has an effect on them. So beware of that too.
Okay. So again, we are back. Nas Self Radio's in full effect. Tell a friend. Let people know about the show. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We got a new logo, new theme song. You know what I mean? Thanks to the God, Rule putting it down. And
Peace, Jewel, on that one.
we welcome all constructive feedback. There's nothing constructive when you're criticizing something that we're striving to do positive, not only for you and your people, but for the world. So on behalf of Nas Self Radio, welcome to the new revolution. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.